Welcome to Sage Women, the podcast where wisdom meets empowerment. I'm Melanie White, your host, and I invite you to join us for inspiring stories and evidence-based insights that support women's health. From expert advice to real-life experiences, we'll help you to thrive through menopause and beyond. And remember to hit the subscribe button so that you get the latest updates every fortnight. Hi, it's Melanie here on the Sage Women podcast, and today I'm really excited to introduce Sallyanne Harnell, who is a divorce coach and strategist. Sallyanne, thank you for being here today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Melanie.
I'm really interested in your title, divorce coach and strategist. Tell us more about what that is and how you got to be in this career.
Well, let's start with what it is. What I do is support anyone who's feeling challenged in a marriage or relationship, navigating separation, divorce, even reorganising their life, their family afterwards, with all of the non-legal parts of divorce. Divorce, yes, is a legal process that someone may need to go through, but there are so many other aspects and elements, emotional, social, financial, impact in the workplace, that somebody needs support around when they're going through separation, divorce, and that's where I come in. The strategy piece comes alongside that social, emotional, psychological support to help guide someone through the minefield, because there is strategy, particularly if there's conflict or divorcing for good reasons, perhaps not able to communicate well. So there's strategic parts that come into play with my work. The how and the why I got to this career was when I separated and divorced the father of our two kids way back when. I couldn't find this kind of support. I was looking for it. I didn't quite know what I was looking for, but knew I didn't really need more therapy. We'd had a therapist, we'd had a couples counsellor. I wanted someone to guide me through what was coming next, and I wanted somebody to help me look at the future. And that's what I do with clients. I say, okay, you're in the mess, you're in the hard part of separation, divorce, and all that brings, but what does your future look like? Let's start there. Let's define that. Okay, now come back to where you are, and we can start to create a plan and a strategy forward to take you towards that future.
That sounds so amazing. And as you were talking, I was thinking about being in that messy time, that messy middle of divorce, being in the thick of it. You're in the weeds and you're bogged down in the detail, and I can absolutely see the value of that strategic approach, of someone to come in and help you lift your eyes up above what's going on and say, well, what next and what else? And how do I navigate out of this? Because unless you can see where you're going, it's hard to actually move in that direction.
Yeah, and the what else, you don't know what you don't know. And for many, divorce is an experience, it's a one-off. You don't want to do it more than once. Some do, but some end up doing it. But you don't know, you don't know. And yeah, absolutely being able to raise your line of sight up above those weeds and look towards a future point. Okay, that's where I'm headed. How do I get there? What steps do I need to take? What's most important?
Sallyanne, what's the typical demographic of people that come to visit you, or the particular types of people? Is there a pattern that you see?
Look, I see a wide range of people, predominantly women and female identifying, but not only. And it is anywhere between 35 and 55. Some younger, I've had a couple older, but generally, it seems to be around the late 30s into early 50s that I'm seeing most at the moment.
And what are some of the things that lead up to a divorce? Is it different for different age groups, or are there some common themes? Like what is the trend? Is it poor communication, or is it something like having children, like a life event?
It can be any and all of those. Communication and conflict are two things that are probably common across every challenging relationship, separation, divorce, communication style, conflict style, or an inability to navigate conflict in healthy ways.
Mm.
And yeah, communication that is breaking down or has never been really solid.
Mm. It makes me think as you're talking that sometimes those things need to be put to the test in life, and then you really realize who you're with and what the relationship is. It's not until you're perhaps in a trickier situation that you might suddenly notice that things aren't what you thought they were. Rose-colored glasses, I suppose I'm saying.
Agree. And I think that goes back to what you said before. Is it a life event? Arrival of kids? Yes. Death of somebody close to you? Yes.
Mm.
Shifting, changing financial situation? Yes. Someone wants to have a child, someone doesn't. Someone wants to leave a job, start a business, the other disagrees. Even that sandwich generation of still looking after children and having demands from elderly aging parents, and of course menopause, perimenopause is a massive influencer on our relationships.
Mm. I would love to talk to you about that now, and especially given that perimenopause and menopause is a time of huge energetic cost, physiologically, physically, emotionally, mentally, the hormonal cascade, the accelerated aging that we go through, trying to cope with the changes in our bodies and minds, and starting to care less about people and things and becoming better at boundaries is like a massive shift. What do you see happening in this space with the clients that you're working with around midlife who have all of these responsibilities and are then looking down the barrel of separation or divorce?
What I see is that perimenopause and menopause directly impacts relationships, marriages,
Mm.
um, and many women look at their relationship, their marriage, and question it and challenge it and push back against it and really want it to be different going forward. And for some, that means separation, divorce, and reorganizing their solo life afterwards.
Mm. Thinking back to, you mentioned earlier becoming a parent, I'm wondering if, or how big of a part intimacy or changes in intimacy are in that cohort.
Huge, massive. And I know for some women, in their desire for sexual contact does not diminish, but for very many, it does. And we're talking before, dry vaginas, all the things that impact one's physical ability to access pleasure and intimacy really impact a relationship. Then there's also the emotional stuff that's going on as well. It's a really huge, has a really huge impact on relationships. The flip side of that is I've had a couple of perimenopausal clients, female, of course, exit relationship and discover actually it wasn't their perimenopause that was holding them back from a really pleasurable sex life. It was the relationship that they were in. So,
Wow.
yeah, there's an invitation to exploration.
What a great discovery for them.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. There's so much going on, isn't there? There's the physical changes, and I'm thinking also about weight redistribution and weight gain. I've spoken to women in tears besides themselves, shocked at how their body has changed and feeling extremely confronted and not able to make peace with that. I suppose part of it is self-acceptance too, and how you feel about yourself as much as anything. As your confidence really takes a knock.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And one thing that I work on with, well, all my clients, but particularly this cohort of women, is reclaiming that confidence and reclaiming joy in your body and finding ways to move it that feel good and accessing pleasure, not just sexual pleasure and sexual intimacy, but pleasure and joy in movement or just in your body. it can really change things for
Mm.
on a deep, deep level. You know, I had one client, and then I did actually follow personally, who jumped into burlesque dancing classes and danced
Wow.
on stage, you know, to reclaim her
Wow.
sense of joy in her body, in a really body positive community. And it really changed things up for her. And I can attest personally, it does. It really changes. Nothing quite like stripping down to your underwear on a stage in front of a few hundred people to terrify you and boost your confidence in equal measures.
Mm. As you're speaking, I'm thinking about it's reinventing, reimagining, reinvigorating, and the part that you said before that was about helping them to have more pleasure in life. And I can't think of the number of women I've worked with or spoken to who just aren't having any fun. They're so busy with responsibilities to others, they are just don't have any enjoyment in life for themselves.
Yeah, I see that a lot in my clients, and it is a reclamation that we work on. Just starting with simple pleasures. But I think with this cohort of women that we're talking about, midlife, perimenopausal, they're really done. They're done with all that caring and tending. And
Yeah.
for many of my clients, they want to be held and cared for and tended to. And if that means stepping out of a relationship so that they can do it, they create more space to be able to do that for and to themselves, then that's a conscious decision that many of them,
Mm.
they're done with the parenting, they're done with the caring, and they're ready to embrace what's next without all of that weight and responsibility.
You mentioned space there, and it got me thinking about some conversations I've had recently, hearing about women whose mothers took off for a week because they just needed some space during that stage of life. And these women not really catching on to what was actually going on was them needing to figure themselves out to be away from people. Is that something that you see, is people that needing to have physical space from others and from their families to get a sense of things, or is it more mental space? Like, what does the word space mean to you in the context of the people that you work with?
I think it's all mental space, absolutely, definitely, and creating and finding it, and reducing or sharing the mental load that we carry as women, as mothers. It's
Mhm.
really, really important. I think it's also space, physical space, away from your family home, away from your kids, even if they're young adults, away from your partner, your person, just to be you. You know, we don't get that. We don't get that. And I can understand absolutely why our mothers would have run away from home for a week or 2 or 3 months or however long it took. Um,
Mm.
and I think there's value in carving that space out for ourselves when feeling this overwhelm and questioning a relationship. And, is it that I need to exit the relationship, or is it that I just need more time and space without all of that noise and responsibility? Do I need to carve that out for myself a week, a quarter, a week, a year, whatever it is for for you as an individual? I think there's real value in that. I often encourage clients to even take a weekend. Just take a weekend before you make this massive decision, and just be with yourself.
Mm.
Don't fill it with noise and social media and all of the stuff. Fill it with silence and quiet and introspection, nature, music, whatever it is for you. But just be with yourself, be with your own thoughts, be with your own feelings, be in your own space, and give yourself the gift of that time. I think it's really powerful.
Mm. I immediately think, how does someone even broach that conversation with their family, with their husband, with their partner? I need to go away from myself for a few days. That must be really hard for some women, easy for others.
Yeah, I think it's easy for others, for some, and really, really challenging for others. Um, I do find that many, not all, but many are met with, oh, okay. Okay, if you really think you need to, some sort of acceptance from their partner, particularly if it's framed in the we're having a hard time, I'm having a hard time, we're finding this relationship really challenging and tricky. I don't want to blow it up.
Mm.
I would just like some time to myself. I think we need to normalise it. I think we need to normalise taking time out as women, as mothers, as carers, and allowing our spouse to step into that space, allowing
Mm.
them to do it their own way while we're not there, allowing them to maybe drop the balls and mess things up,
Mm. Mm.
and yeah, to honour our own needs a little more as humans, as women, not just as woman in context with all the other relationships that she has.
Mm. Because there's two relationships, I guess, going on. There's the one that you have with your partner and what's happening to that, and then there's the one that you're having with yourself and what's
Yeah,
happening to that.
yeah, and that really, that can, as you used the word confronting before, you were talking about physical changes in our bodies when we navigate perimenopause, but the changes in our hearts and minds and souls can be confronting too,
Mm.
and deserve time and attention and care.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the women that we speak to, and I'm thinking now of the workplace and the flow-on impacts of this. I mean, the research seems to indicate that relationships at home have a huge impact on productivity, performance, engagement, and so on. And you can probably speak to that. I'm just really interested in how someone is managing to go to work and do their work while all of this is happening. And what we hear a lot of is, I've lost confidence in myself. I've got brain fog. I'm losing my memory. I can't think clearly. Am I competent at this job? And I guess how competent they feel in their relationships too is part of this whole identity challenge or shift that's going on.
Mm. Add to all of that, bringing all of that into the workplace, add in the complexities and challenges of separation, divorce, and productivity presenteeism, or productivity drops
Mm.
significantly. Presenteeism when you're there but you're not there, is impacted. Absenteeism, and again questioning: Am I able to do this job? What am I going to do as a single person? How is this going to, those thoughts come into it as well. The statistics and research around impact of separation, relationship breakdown, and divorce on the in the workplace is pretty significant. So adding the two together, I'm not surprised that, women are feeling unsettled, unstable, challenged, all the things, if they're navigating both of those and still trying to show up at work.
Mm. I wonder if how someone perceives their identity or the focus of their identity impacts things too. Like, for example, someone who defines themselves by the way they work or defines themselves as a mother and wife or whatever, that's obviously something that they're reevaluating too, amongst everything else.
Yeah, I find a lot of my female clients really define themselves by having all their things together, all their bits together, having life under control, whether that be stay-at-home mum with two kids or high-flying exec, C-suite, whoever they are. They really define themselves by, I am the person who has it all under control.
Mm.
And both of the things that we're talking about here, separation of divorce, relationship breakdown, and or perimenopause, really shakes that.
Mm.
Because you can't hold it all together. You just cannot if you're navigating either or both of those life experiences. And yeah, it takes a lot of introspection and work. And I use the word reclamation in my work a lot. And in this space, it's about letting go of what was and looking forward. Okay, how am I going to move forward? What's next?
Mm.
Rather than, I can't be the person I used to be. Oh, so I'm broken. No, you can't be the person who you used to be. What does it look like next? What's the next thing? Switch
Mm.
focus to a future focused approach. And I think both of these life moments, life experiences, give us an opportunity to let go and to put down things, roles, relationships, jobs, whatever it is. We get to let go of stuff that is no longer or has not been serving us. And I don't mean in a real self-centered, self-serving way. I just mean an opportunity to redefine, what do I want for myself going forward?
Yeah.
What do I want for my future relationship? What do I want for my future workspace? All of that. How do I want to show up?
Mm-hmm. It's such an interesting part of this conversation for me, because I remember going through menopause and being exhausted for 18 months or 2 years, really exhausted, waking up with night sweats and things, poor sleep. And what I realized was that I had so little energy available. I became extremely discriminating about where I spent that energy on who. And so, speaking to getting rid of the things that no longer serve you, I started unsubscribing from emails. I started withdrawing socially a bit from things that drain my energy. I stopped doing certain things that I thought, this is actually just a chore and not pleasurable anymore. So it was interesting to have the sense of, okay, I've got limited time and energy. I'm getting a sense of what's important to me. Anything that doesn't look like that is getting the boot, kind of thing.
Mm.
And not everyone goes through exhaustion and fatigue, but it seems to be one of the most common symptoms in perimenopause and menopause. So I'm just speculating that that might be part of that change that you're talking about too.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. And I don't know if you were aware of it, but spoon theory, have you heard of the spoon theory? It was
No.
originally used to describe the energy of chronic illness or chronic pain. You start
Ah,
you start with a jar full of spoons each morning. Now, if you're
yeah, I
somebody
have.
who has chronic illness, it might take you 5 spoons just to get up and have a shower and have your breakfast. Whereas for somebody who's not navigating something significant like separation, divorce, menopause, it just takes 1 spoon. So it's about being
Yeah.
discerning exactly where you spend your time, your energy, if it's limited. And really, for all of us, it's limited. We just pretend it's not. But yeah, that's something that I work a lot on, a lot on with my clients.
Mm,
Who gets to come with you next, and what gets to come with you next, and what are you going to put down, leave behind? Are you going to continue to beat yourself up because you're not perfect? Are you going to continue to uh, respond to all the I should messages that you have every day?
mm, mm,
Or are you going to actually choose curiosity when should comes up and reframe it? Should I? Do I really need to do that? Do I have spoons or energy for that? I don't.
mm.
I don't have to do that. Whatever that should is for you.
That's a great, really helpful, practical tip for anyone listening to this, thinking, what is something that I can do right now to start evaluating myself and my future? And I have heard of the spoons
Mm.
model, and once you've described it, and then who's in and who's out. That what do I have energy for? That's gold. What might something else be that is maybe an easy takeaway for people to think about going through this stage of life with perimenopause, menopause, separation and divorce? Is there anything else that seems to be effective that's simple? I know that the work that you do is much more complex, but I'm just thinking about any other ideas that you might be able to share, or tips for people going through this stage.
A really simple one, and it is something that I use personally as well as um, offer to clients, is make yourself the center. Make
Mm,
yourself the center of every decision, every moment, every day. It doesn't make you selfish. It doesn't make you self-centered. But if you make yourself the center, then it's a little bit like filling up your own cup, right? Fill up your own cup so you can give to others from the overflow. Make yourself the center. Make yourself happy. Make yourself well. And
mm.
that will flow on through everything, including your relationships.
What a great, great idea. Thank you, Sallyanne. I can imagine asking myself, what would Melanie think about this? What should she do? Almost in a third person way.
Yeah, I
You
love
think,
that too, Melanie.
yeah, yeah, amazing. And so it obviously is a big, messy process, but what's on the other side? beyond just separation and divorce, the work you do is really transformational. So do you have some examples of what that could look like for somebody who's going through this very big reclamation process? What are some of the outcomes they might experience?
Oh, it's so wide and varied. Personally, so our kids are 22 and 20, and we have shared every birthday with, as parents, with our kids. So I've got another 21st coming up this year, so we share that. That is possible, that you can be friends, or at least friendly. You don't have to be best friends, but you can be friendly with your co-parent. Um, I think one of the really big things is that realization for women that I don't have to. Like, I just don't have to. I don't have to stay married. I don't have to stay in a relationship that isn't lighting me up. I actually have agency and I can choose. And that brings the outcome, whatever the outcome that individual wants. That realization of, I don't have to. I don't have to do this. I guess for others, it's about redefining their relationship with money and being really across their finances as a single woman and planning. So I often say that it doesn't matter if you're splitting $5 or $50 million, everybody goes into scarcity when you're dividing it. But on the other side, there might be less, and I put less in inverted commas, but there's also more. So there might be less coming into your household because it's a single income household, but there's more power in the way you manage your money. There's more freedom in the choices you make with your money because it is all yours. And I think that a lot of women who are mothers are terrified of what divorce will do to their children. But on the other side is the opportunity for them to experience really healthy relationships. Through the middle of it is an opportunity for you to demonstrate how to deal with conflict in really healthy ways and do really hard things and do them well. And again, on the other side, there's an opportunity for you to build a really strong, solid relationship with your kids, because you don't have to cope. You don't have to have the other person in your house. And I know that sounds a little bit, I don't know, I'm being a bit cheeky, but you can do your parenting on your time in exactly your way. You don't have to compromise and create, but yeah, a compromised sort of way to.
Yeah.
You can just do it in your way. So
Mhm.
without giving specifics for specific individuals, I think they're the sort of key nuggets of gold that are on the other side.
I really picked up on what you said about people having a sense of agency, and that is the key to whatever comes next. That is so important, isn't it, for women who perhaps haven't had the sense of agency before or the opportunity to nurture that. It sounds like doing that work is actually really profound and at the core of what you're doing.
Yeah, it is deep work and deeply profound. A past client actually messaged me just recently and said, what you gifted me was freedom and agency. So yes, it was a separation, divorce. She's living in a unit, and still some things to be finalized and organized, but you gifted me freedom and agency, and I thought that was pretty powerful.
That's amazing. Really amazing. It gives me the sense of, well, what am I capable of now? And probably agency extends to making clearer decisions and better decisions for themselves rather than others, being more confident in decision making, and perhaps just dreaming bigger, changing careers, moving house, traveling more, taking up hobbies. I can imagine a whole wide world of things would open up.
Absolutely. Dating again, being really clear on who or what you're calling into your life in terms of
Yeah.
a partner, if that's something that you're wanting to explore. Um, it really does just open up possibility.
Mm. And I think your work is really critical for midlife women from the perspective of stepping into leadership roles too. I mean, some women might decide, oh, this career isn't for me anymore and I don't want to do that, which is fair enough. But when we think about women who've been with an organisation for 10, 15, 20 years, they're at the pinnacle of their career. They have so much intel, wisdom and knowledge, and it's huge on company agendas now to retain female leaders and to boost their numbers and WGEA reporting and those sorts of things. If a woman's questioning herself and her capability and she steps away from work or goes part-time or never steps into a leadership position, that's a huge loss for her and for the company.
And for society in general, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's so much wisdom, power, and knowledge in a midlife woman that we should be celebrating, honoring, and giving voice to, giving a platform for her to step onto, and share that wisdom.
Mm. Ready to conquer the world now, Sallyanne? Just talking to you is really inspiring. And I suppose before we wrap up today, do you have any last words or anything that you'd like to share or any philosophy that you'd like to put out there to people listening to this who might be thinking about separating or who are in the thick of it or are trying to come out of that?
Oh, words of wisdom. Go gently and go slowly with yourself as well as your decision-making process. Once you step onto a high conflict pathway through a separation or divorce, it's really hard to dial it back and step off. Seek support early, and whether that's a coach, whether that's a therapist, whether it's listening to podcasts like this, like mine, seek support and build your team early so that you can make really solid future focused decisions from a grounded space. You're not reactive, you're not, you haven't hit the perimenopause, 0 Fs to give, and you just blow it all up and make it high conflict. So build your team around you consciously and go gently and slowly. It's the best option. Or it's the best, gives you the best chance, I suppose, to have a low conflict, collaborative, compassionate separation divorce if that's what you choose.
Mm. Great insight, Sallyanne. And as you said, build your team. We just talk about the same thing in terms of perimenopause. There's obviously a great harmony there of maybe part of your team, even if you're not in a relationship conflict, is still evaluating your relationship with yourself and others because the identity part is so huge.
Mm.
So building a team at midlife sounds like a really important outcome.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, it's great to see menopause, perimenopause sort of having more of a moment, and we're all giving voice to our experiences and sharing our knowledge and our wisdom, our research, our resources. And I think that's really, really important. Scaffolding yourself with a team who get it on a deep level, lived experience and or professional, is key, absolutely key.
And knowing across the span of your whole life, these skills are entirely relevant for many other situations that are going to come up because everything we do is about relationships.
Yeah, and it all starts with the relationship you have with yourself. I know it sounds trite, but it's true. It's really true. And divorce, menopause, midlife shakes that relationship, but with self. But also, as we've talked about across this conversation, it really gives you the opportunity to reevaluate, reassess, scrap some stuff, whether it's internal, external, strip out the noise and get really clear on what's important going forward.
Amazing. Sallyanne, thank you so much for your time today. I've loved this conversation and you've shared some really important insights, and I look forward to sharing your details in the show notes for people who are interested to contact you.
Thanks, Melanie.
Appreciate it.